Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Accelerator with Michael Conniff. That's me. We're a podcast dedicated and devoted to entrepreneurs, founders, and startups everywhere. We also have a podcast called The Angel, which is more focused on angels, VCs, family offices, people with the money. So we urge you to look at that one, to rate and both these podcasts, to share them. We're on all the major platforms, including Apple, Amazon, Audible, and about 10 others. Plus, you can see the video and also the audio on Spotify and on YouTube. So take a look, rate us, and tell your friends. We're really getting up there with when we send this out by email. We're getting over 4,000 opens, which is pretty amazing. So we're really getting some great momentum. Today, I want to introduce Raviv Kerem to you and to the podcast. Welcome, Raviv. Great to have you.
Thank you, Michael. Great to be here.
He is a go-to-market operations expert, a go-to-market strategic consultant, and veteran, I guess I could say, from Israel, who has now moved to New York City. How's the transition going so far?
It's going great, really. We just made it here to Astoria, which is a great area. I'm not sure if too many of you are familiar with it, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Well, I am. I don't know if I said this on this podcast. I just began a stint as entrepreneur in residence at WeWork, which is in Long Island City. So I have been spending quite a bit of time in Queens at what they call Gotham Center. So yeah, it's that whole area, Queens, Forest Hills, really underrated, particularly if you're a Manhattan chauvinist like me, because I grew up in Manhattan. But lots of great things going on in Queens and very easy to get into the city. So you made this big move after working at a bunch of different places, Team8, Tech 7, also LEC Consultants. We'll talk about all of those. But let's start with the present. What made you, convinced you to move to New York? And I know your wife is a dancer. I'm sure that had something to do with it.
That's right.
But what did you see here as being opportunity beyond, let's call it go-to-market opportunity, beyond what was happening in Israel?
Yeah, so I find that pretty much the center of the tech and innovation scene in the world, pretty much, is here in New York, and I really look forward to an opportunity to work with the very best in this field. I've worked in various verticals throughout my career, lately data and cybersecurity, and I feel that this is the place to be if you want to join the best.
And what are you planning? Do you think you might try a startup? How? And I should mention, you and I met about 2 months ago, so we've had about 2 months. You've had about 2 months to sort of get your feet on the ground. What are you starting to think you might do?
Yeah, so right now I finally have a first break from work in years. So I started looking at the space of AI and all these new technologies that are popping up right now, and I've started working on something of my own. I'll be more specific later on, maybe, but it's very exciting and it's in a very fast-moving domain right now.
Let me ask you. I want to talk about Israel quite a bit here, but what is the biggest difference between trying to do a startup in New York City versus in Israel?
You can start as a startup in Israel, no problem. Israel is a great bed for startups and entrepreneurship. The tech ecosystem in Israel are one of the best in the world, pretty much, specifically in Tel Aviv and all across Israel. You have really great minds and people working really hard to build leading companies in their field. And well, both are great places to do this, but I felt that here I could get a bigger jump. And also, this was an opportunity for me to try a whole new area, a whole new country that is very exciting to be here. Yeah,
a whole new country. It's all there waiting for you. It's we call it the American dream. So let's talk about Israel and Israelis. I think are really have the reputation of being very sharp, aggressive business people, and being very smart too. Is that why Israel is a good place for startups? Because there's for number of people per capita, the number of startups seems very high. So is that because the government encourages it, or is it something in the Israeli national psyche?
There is absolutely there's a few elements that contribute to that. First of all, Israeli people are very driven. We want to be the best at every field. You can see people really driving and pushing themselves forward in terms of mentality. So that's just the start of it. Secondly, you have an entire ecosystem that pushes entrepreneurs and people altogether to innovate. You have a very unique situation in terms of the army perspective, in terms of the neighboring countries. So you have very strong elite units in the army that are very innovative in terms of security, cybersecurity, in terms of intelligence, in terms of pushing the envelope in their capabilities every day and keeping Israelis safe. You also have very strong government backing for startups. I think one of the leading investors in R&D is the country like in the world. We are leading that in terms of percentage from the GDP, I think, as well. And you also have a very sense of like communal assistance to Israeli and the ecosystems. You have a number of companies that really try to create partnerships and to create synergy of what you have because you're coming from a small country and you need to push yourself ahead of the competition. So it's a very assistive approach that we all share.
And you served in the military. Virtually all Israelis serve in the military as they're growing up. What did you do?
I was in a special operations unit, an elite commander unit in the army.
And what can you tell us about that without getting in trouble?
Getting in trouble. So I was in a commanding position. So I was in like a combat position in the army, not a technological position, none of that sort. We did have a technological element inside our unit. It's a combat engineering unit called Yahalom. You can read about it in the internet. And I was a combat fighter there, and let's say I had experience in very difficult situations and very high stake situations, moving very fast and very decisively. So I think that really grew me and made me very strong today mentality and in my mental sense of that. I'm very capable of handling difficult, ambiguous situations and pushing through them no matter what.
That's a good definition of entrepreneurship. Is the company you're planning to start, is that your first company?
That will be my first company.
Oh,
Yes.
interesting. So let's talk about what you did in Israel. You worked at a number of firms. Let's start with Tech Seven. It's Tech Seven Venture Studio, and
Hmm.
specifically about your go-to-market, your GTM expertise. It's a foundry model. Tell me what a foundry model is in startup.
So the Tech 7, the foundry model is actually for Teammate. We'll get to that in a second. But
Okay.
Tech 7 is a venture studio that is working to promote the southern ecosystem, high-tech and entrepreneurial ecosystem of Israel. So I did that. I built an entrepreneurship program and led it end to end. And also I was a marketing manager there. So helping founders and entrepreneurs and tech companies do some collaborations together, meet up together, acceleration programs. That was a very interesting step, definitely.
What kind of companies do you see in Israel? Obviously, a lot of tech companies, but is there anything unique or characteristics that might be different than in other countries?
Yeah, so we have a very strong food tech ecosystem and agri-tech as well. Israel is very uniquely positioned in the world in terms of its climate. So you have a very large desert area that builds amazing agri-tech and desert tech companies also in the southern part. You also have a very strong tech ecosystem and technological abilities, let's say like talent from the army and from other sources that contribute to the fintech ecosystem, to the cybersecurity and data AI ecosystem. So we have a group of talent that is let's say per capita, I think we have the most talent that you would see in the world.
Yes, we were talking about that before. So, when did you begin to focus on go to market expertise?
Yeah, so right after Tech 7, I joined LEC, a management consulting firm, which focuses on innovation and also on go-to-market for startups, for companies that are looking to grow in their market. So I worked a lot with startup on their strategic planning, complete go-to-market tactics, from really high overview to what they do on the day-to-day basis, and also with larger corporations and really improving processes, operational efficiency, and inducing innovation into their organizations, either through M&A or venture investments or through innovative processes within the organization.
And I like to sort of,
So there,
yeah,
yeah,
keep going, keep going. My bad.
uh, yeah, so no, no problem. So just I wanted to add there. So there I was a strategy consultant, but also eventually I became a sector manager. So I led projects, teams, and like the sales and business development efforts of my firm in the agri-food tech domain,
Oh, okay.
and managed to really build out that firm's reputation as a domain leader at that time.
And what? How do you define go to market? What does that mean? We hear it. We hear the phrase.
Yeah.
I think you might be the first go to market specialist we've had on the accelerator, which is great. Maybe we should have more. But what is the definition of go to market in your view? How should we think of this?
Yeah, sure. So go-to-market is all the aspects of taking your product and pushing it to customers, bringing it to customers, meaning finding the right value proposition and it's really solving problems for the customers and being able to deliver it to them in the most efficient, scalable, and you can say even enjoyable way for them to consume it.
So, what are the okay? So let me sort of try to put this in plain terms. So, a founder has an idea, co-founder perhaps. They have an idea. They kind of get it going. Um, they have, I assume, have an MVP that they've kind of carried out. Some kind of team, but now this is really the moment of truth, isn't it? Because they have to go to market. They have to get out there. So what do you do first of all to help them define their market and define their customer? I would think that would be important.
Exactly. So you find a problem that needs solving. Okay, and then you need to understand who are you solving this problem for. So after you build that initial MVP, you have to then validate that you did solve the problem and that you are aiming at the right target audience. So the next stage is to really analyze and try to build metrics and validations and even like tests that you can prove that your product is has the right fit to the market it aims for.
So product market fit, right? So
Exactly.
give us a couple of maybe give us an example of one that worked really well and then maybe one that didn't work and what's the difference between the two.
Yeah, so having a product market fit is not a very like it's not a static situation. You always have to move and adjust your services, your offerings, your products to the market. Not so well product market fit is something that you lose. You don't able to really consistently convince clients to purchase your product or service, right? That you lose them along the way or you're not focused enough. When you have a good product market fit, you will continuously sell your product and be able to provide more value to customers as you progress and you provide value to more customers and more and better value as you go forward.
So give me an example of one company that did that you worked with, if you can think of one.
Sure. I can think of one in Teammate, and we'll dive into that because that's a very fascinating company that I've worked in. So one company was really struggling with their product market fit to really understand what their customers are looking for in this solution.
Why
So
were
they
they,
didn't,
what was the essence of the struggle? Why is that a struggle for some companies? What's the problem there?
yeah, because sometimes you don't really know what the customers want. And even the customers themselves don't really know what they want.
Hmm.
They don't know how to explain and to really convey their pains, what they're suffering from. So it's not easy to really understand that and have that pinpointed correctly at the first go. It's usually something that will take a few months to a year or maybe more. And as I mentioned, continuously to do so, to perfect your offering.
Hmm. Um, so, how about an example? So, can you think of a specific company or a specific product? Or I'm looking for examples
Yeah,
of a product, a
sure.
company that's
I
had that struggle and then kind of work through it, and how you work through it.
Exactly. So
How
I
does
won't give out any names, but I'll give the domain that this company has worked in, if
you'll
that's
know?
all right with you.
Of course, you'll notice I have a habit of like repeating the same question until I get an answer. So
Yeah.
I'm persistent that way. So yeah. So tell me.
Yeah, so there's this company working in the application security space that has, well, they done quite successfully initially. They have built a product which is great. It looked good, but they didn't manage to really um, catch the needs of the customers in terms of what they're saying to them. They understood what the product does. They think they do, the customers, but they didn't manage to see the value. So what I've done there is to analyze sales calls, to really hear what the customers have to say, understand their pains, and focus the offering and messaging, and to really hold all the different aspects of these pains they're trying to solve, and understanding, pinpointing which kind of customers should you focus that are the right focus for this company.
And
And
you
this
actually sat over the shoulder of the representatives and listened to the call, or did you record the calls? How did you do that?
So you had a recording of some of the calls, indeed, yes, and you were able to really to see the text as you go along. You have some options for that as well. So with looking for very specific issues and focusing on different elements, I was able to understand what is the right messaging. And then you see that today the company has shifted its messaging towards my what I offered them to do, and they managed to significantly grow, like more than tripling the revenue stream ever since.
And how did they shift? What did they shift to and from?
They
Or
shift from being more technical,
from
from a
and
very technical perspective.
yeah.
Yeah, it's being less trying to be less technical and less educative to the customers, and really being to putting it in very plain terms, and allowing the companies to have confidence. This is a cybersecurity company, so companies that use these tools really look for confidence in their ability to innovate and to develop new products. And a lot of times it's very difficult to to do so. And you're not sure where an attacker might come from. So you're trying to get all the coverage that you can, and you're not even sure exactly what kind of tool you need to have, what kind of abilities you need to have to be able to handle these kinds of threats. So yeah,
It's interesting. So how about an example of a company where they went to market, it was a go to market situation, and they were unable to make, I guess it's about making the product market fit, right? So they were unable to make the product market fit. Tell us and give us an example of that if you have one, and also why that was so hard and why that's so hard for companies.
yeah. So sometimes companies really try to educate their market too heavily. They're trying to build something that the market doesn't even know they need. And that's a very, very hard effort to do, because you need to invest your efforts not only in reaching those customers, them finding you, them knowing about you, but to make them understand what you're trying to do. So many companies, most companies fail actually, like around 97% of tech companies or startups altogether fail not because of technology or their solution not being good enough. It's about not being able to convey their message to the customers.
And I call that a spinach company. You got to eat this; it'll be good for you, but it doesn't taste very good sometimes.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm going to do it again. Raviv, you're hard to pin down, but give me a specific example of a company, or
Um,
that you can talk about that where that was a problem, and what. Given that there's a problem, you're an expert in this. I'm sure there was kind of a fix of some kind, But I guess the question might be, why is it hard for companies to fix these problems? They don't seem insurmountable. So what's the difficulty?
The difficulty I find mostly, and forgive me for not for not naming a company, but the
You don't have,
difficulty that I
you don't have to name them. You can just talk more in general terms, but just give us a flavor of it.
exactly. So, what usually makes a company fail in this aspect is that they're pretty much falling in love with their solution rather than and focusing on the problem they're trying to solve. I can give an example actually, like which is really interesting. It's a known example of McDonald's. So they a while back they have created this milkshake, right? They've created this milkshake, and it was flavor the flavor was really good, but customers didn't buy. They tried to market it for kids. They thought who drinks milkshake? Kids, of course, and they sold very little amounts. And what they tried to do is okay, let's try to understand what these products actually do sell, the milkshakes. And they found that grown people, truck drivers, are the one who buy them in the late afternoon hours. What they figured out is that these late afternoon and also morning hours, that these drivers use this as a meal for them because it has a lot of nutrients. It could be it was meant to be healthy as well. And what they did is they shifted their solution to accommodate that need of having a quick on-the-go meal for adults. And they created it more. They changed the solution to be more thick. The milkshake was thicker. It held more nutrients. It was a whole breakfast or afternoon lunch that you can get in a cup and just drive with.
Mm.
And their sales skyrocketed. They managed to sell 1,000 times more than they initially did.
Oh, interesting. And so it seems that one common thread in the problem of going to market is, or let's call it an approach too, is that you've mentioned it in a couple of different ways, but in the companies that struggle, or even companies that need to pivot, they it, maybe they're not listening to their customers, like you said. You had to listen to the phone calls. It's like so much of it is listening to your customers, isn't it? They won't always give you the answer, but they will certainly tell you what isn't the answer, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yes, it's all about listening to customers and trying to understand and having the right metrics to understand that you are going in the right direction. What I mean is, you hear a certain point of view of one type of customer, but maybe it's the wrong one that you're really aiming for. And secondly, customers sometimes say what they want, but they don't actually follow through on that. They say they want this, but they actually buy something different. So it's very good to also listen to the customers, having their perspective, but being driven to not only go on this direction, but to have these metrics, or let's say like uh, stopping points where you say, okay, this is not working. I need to change something different, or to know that something is working, and then you push forward and understanding why this is working, and not just that it is.
Yeah, and also this tendency that all entrepreneurs have, I think, to fall in love with their product, and to think that, the spinach thing, to think that people need this, it'll be good for them. If only they could see, rather than sort of doing it the other way around, starting with the customers and having that drive a lot of your decisions. So let's circle back to Raviv Kerem being in New York, starting a company. So, did you come to New York with a specific idea of starting a company? Obviously, you could get a job in a number of different ways: go to market, accelerators, foundries. Oh, we never did talk about foundries. So, tell me what a foundry
Yeah.
is. Tell me what that is.
Um, yeah, sure. So a foundry model, like the Teammate, where I was a strategy manager in my last role. Teammate is a venture capital firm that doesn't only invest in companies; it also ideates and builds companies from scratch. So this goes well actually with our last conversation here. So what it does is trying to validate the idea for a company before it even builds it. So you have a team of experts working in enterprise software, which is where I was, but also fintech and digital health, that are dedicated to looking for opportunities to build companies and then validating them from the business,
Hmm.
technological, and market point of view while looking for entrepreneurs that can start this company.
Hmm.
So there I was doing ideation, exploring new opportunities and validating from the business standpoint, also helping existing portfolio companies working day to day with the founders to really perfect their go to market and understand their customer needs. And then, of course, convey their products in the right messaging. And lastly, doing operations like fundraising for the fund, also improving internal strategic processes. So you have an entire point of view of validation for the idea and product before you even get going.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting model. I don't think we've quite talked about it on the show before, so I'm happy to hear about it. So, circling back as before to New York City, what would you like to see happen while you're in New York? Other than getting,
Yeah, so
let's get
mhm.
your wife on Broadway for sure. But other than that, what are you thinking? What would be the a nice outcome for you?
Yeah, so this company that I'm working on has been progressing pretty nicely. We have a tech partner, started building this and really validating this with the customers as well. So we're seeing that we are going on the right direction. And I really will hope to look to see that succeed as well. But I'm also working on different aspects, like getting to know people here. I've met with well over 100 people at this point here in the New York ecosystem, tech scene, and also non-tech, also financial services, and very different areas. And I'm looking to get to know new people that are just great people to meet. You know, having a beer and really starting this second chapter
Yeah,
in our
yeah.
lives.
Well, that's great. I want to remind our listeners this is the Accelerator Podcast with Michael Conniff. That is me. We're on all the major podcast platforms, also audio and video on Spotify and YouTube. Make sure to rank us, rate us, like us, share us, participate in every way you can. We love your comments. You should also know that we're using Substack to deliver it via email newsletter. That's a new thing. I told you about WeWork, so a lot going on here, but we're also very grateful to have someone who really knows his stuff. And I want to thank you, Raviv Kerem, for being with us here on the Accelerator. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Michael.
And best of luck in the U.S. I don't know if you've heard this, but it is still the greatest country in the world. Don't believe otherwise. And and nobody's invented a better one. Though Israel, Israel's pretty interesting too. It has some of the same problems. So we obviously have a lot in common and are close allies almost all the time. So great, thanks for being here, and we look forward to seeing how your journey continues.
Thank you very much, Michael.
And
Be
thanks
in
to
touch.
everybody out there for listening. Remember, we'll be back with another podcast before you know it.